Light from Lantern presents Knit a Spell. I'm Magical Maker, Katie Rempe.
And I'm the maker of magic, James Devine.
Join us as we stitch together the symbiotic relationship between crafting
and the craft. Hello, Katie.
How's it going, Jim?
Oh my gosh, it's great. What a great week it's been.
I'll tell you what, I feel like we were just here doing the last one.
I know, doesn't it feel like it's last week right now?
It's like a deja vu situation.
But didn't we say something about time being a
That's
construct?
right.
People say time is relative, and I'm always like, which relative?
Oh my God, great point.
Because if it's that one brother-in-law, I'm not interested.
Not home, sorry about it. Yeah, so this week for episode 3, I thought we would flip the script and I would grill you, Mr.
Oh,
Jim.
that's right. I forgot. I'm in the hot seat.
That's right. So, Jim.
Yay!
What is a divine hand, Jim?
Now,
I know that might sound like a loaded question.
I feel like that needs to be on a Discovery special. The North American divine hand Jim lives a lifestyle.
We see him hosting the Meet a Mystic here on Tuesday. Again. It seems to be his routine.
In his natural habitat.
That's right, the intranet. Yeah.
Of the internet.
That's right.
You're hilarious.
Oh, well. So how did your whole exploration into the magical realm come to be that you even thought up James Devine?
Yeah. Well, James Devine is a later iteration of, and like an evolution of who I've been for a long time. So as a pseudonym, James Devine is, okay, so where that came from directly was, I have a really good friend and business coach, and she was talking about how Beyonce, you know Beyonce?
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah, of course. Beyonce has a character. She has a persona that she channels when she goes on stage. Are you familiar with this?
Oh, yeah. Okay,
so this persona has a name called Sasha Fierce, right?
That's right.
And so there's this idea that, you know, who I am as Jim Barker is this guy. I mean, awesome guy, but just, you know, this guy, right? But when I'm on stage, people notice that I bring the energy and I bring the fun and I bring the vibe when I'm on stage, or when I'm teaching or when I'm facilitating or when I'm on camera. So I thought, I really want to give that persona a name. I really want to have him be like who I'm able to be out in public and sort of infuse that avatar with a magical sort of like way of being. Yes. And so that I can just be like fully like released of my whatever, Jim Barker's dealing with and just be James Devine, right?
I love that. I
had thought, and it's hard. It's a little funny because I am a really authentic person and I'm like, is this inauthentic of me to use a pseudonym? And every time I ask people, like good friends and even people sort of out there, like, what do you think about that name, James Devine? And people are like, I love it. It's so like makes sense to me and
fitting.
So I think you feel that way too?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool. So I'm like, okay, it's no secret that James Devine is really Jim Barker's pseudonym. I don't mind that people know both. I think it's cool.
Oh, you Clark Kented yourself.
I Clark Kented myself because it isn't like that, right? Like,
that's right.
But it's super fun to just like have this sort of drag name, if you will.
Yeah, your superhero name.
Exactly. So I find it really fun. That wasn't really answering your original question though, which is like where do I come from and how that's where
the name comes from. That works. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Originally, like I have a whole story a true story about how I discovered palmistry.
Because that's how you got into the magical realm initially was palmistry, right?
Those are a little bit different. You asked the question of how I got into the magical realm, and it's slightly different than palmistry. Meaning how I got into the spiritual realm is more of an umbrella than how I get into palmistry.
Ah.
And I think palmistry is an expression of my spiritual explorations, not the other way around.
Ah, yeah, I get that. That's how I feel with tarot now that you say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's like one expression. It's one of the tools that I use to express something bigger. So
Yeah.
the umbrella story is I was fortunate to be raised in a very devoutly Catholic household. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
know most magical people wouldn't say that that was fortunate. And in my case, there was a lot of times when it was very restrictive and when my parents were maybe unduly frightened of things that they didn't need to be frightened of because of the satanic panic from the 70s. I remember
Right.
getting caught up in those conversations about the satanic panic, and my
Hmm.
parents worried about everything being Satanism.
Interesting.
So I was a, you know, recipient of that information as a child. Being in a very like devout Catholic upbringing, let me just be clear. My parents have and had a very devout, I'm sorry, not devout, that's the wrong implication. A very deep and personal relationship
Hmm.
with their spiritual expression. They used and use their belief and their faith to better love others. They have the religion as a foundation, as a structure, so that they have like a foundation and a lattice work upon which to grow and to blossom and to be the best people they can be.
Hmm, nothing wrong with
And
that.
because they found great meaning
Hmm.
in Catholicism, that's how my mom was raised anyway. My dad converted to it. They found great meaning in it, and it was really beautiful. So as a kid, I guess I should also say my parents are very loving. They're unconditionally loving.
That's
You
great.
know, when they meet you, they will
Mm-hmm.
be like, "Oh, I love Katie. She's just
Oh.
so brilliant." They're those parents who are just like totally in love with you,
Oh,
right?
just always
Because
on your side.
yeah, they see the amazing things about you,
Oh,
right?
that's great.
They're fabulous, enlightened human beings that I apparently my spirit chose as parents. So
That's right.
good job, Jim. Good job.
Yes.
Good job, past life, Jim. You did a good job choosing your parents this time.
Heck yeah.
Um, so so that I think it's important to have that background because in that context, my experience of the divine, of God,
Hmm.
was one of a benevolent, loving, unconditionally loving, always on your side. Yes, still an old man in a throne with a white beard, um, but still a very benevolent, kind old man in a throne with a beard.
That's nice. Yeah.
As opposed to the fire and brimstone type of
Yeah.
divine that people
Fear-based,
experienced.
oppressive. Yeah.
Exactly,
Mm-hmm. A
right.
little different. Yeah.
Um, and then Christ in my upbringing was this amazing radical hippie who was out to upend the status quo. And so we really
Mm-hmm.
saw him. I think my parents were not hippies, but they were very much, I think, influenced by the sort of 1970s transformation of Christ being a little more of a radical and
Yeah.
a little more of a and so this idea of this independent sort of personal connection with the divine, this personal connection with God. And so those things really informed me and my faith as a kid. And
Hmm.
so I really felt the presence of God all the time when grew up in the Sonoran Desert of southern Arizona
Hmm.
and really found, the divine expression in nature and in the skies and in the stars, and knew that God and Jesus was there with me all the time and had a personal sort of connection and would just talk to God all the time.
Hmm.
So this was like the underpinnings. And then Catholicism has a lot of ritual and a
Yes.
lot of saints and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
patron saints, right? So, and it's interesting that as I'm interviewing other mystical people on my Meet a Mystic show on Instagram every
Right.
Tuesday at 11,
Yeah. Tune
sorry
in.
for the shameless plug,
11 a.m., by the way, Pacific.
Pacific time.
Yeah.
Um, there's this interesting thing around like how many folks were Catholic, or
Yeah.
certainly how many folks came from also restrictive, evangelical, even sort of, religions. And I wonder how much of that then was implanted around this deep connection to spirituality. Because when I grew up and came out, realized that I was gay when I was 19, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if this religion, and don't get me wrong, I had a really amazingly positive gay experience in the Catholic Church where my priest was really affirming
That's
and
great.
awesome. But the religion itself couldn't contain what I was starting to believe or understand about the divine.
Yeah.
And so this sort of divine presence that went way beyond the Trinity, way beyond Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit, I started to realize, where's the feminine in the
Mm.
divine? Where's the sexual in the divine? Because the God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit are not, they're sanitized of their sexuality or their sexual expression, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
seen as like, where's the homosexuality? Where do you see that deified? I don't see myself. I see myself as a white man.
Mm.
As a cis white man, I see myself expressed in Catholicism, but women aren't seen. You don't see that in the God of the Catholics, right? And I
Right.
don't see, queer people expressed, trans people expressed in, I'm not trans, but those folks also. There's lots
Sure.
of ways of being as a human if we're made in God's image. I don't see that image is reflected in God. And
Yeah.
so I started to have this realization that Catholicism can't seem to contain all of what I'm starting to understand about the divine.
Yeah. It was a
And
bigger picture.
there's a bigger picture. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So for a long time, then I was just sort of woo woo, if you will,
Mm.
like not spiritual, not religious. If
Mm-hmm.
probably a ton of people on who are listening can identify with spiritual, not religious,
Absolutely. I sure
right?
can. Yep.
Yeah. And it was in 1998 that I met this guy, and on the internet was new back then, by the way.
Oh.
Oh, and
Dial up. Hello.
it was dial up. Oh,
Yep.
that was really
I
good.
was
Yeah.
there. I remember it well.
The internet was new, and
Mm.
I met this guy on an online ad, and he responded, like, I filled out this whole profile and he responded back, why'd you put other in religion? Because I had
Mm.
filled out this profile and I had said under religion, other, we'll talk about it later. So he asked that question. I'm like, oh, finally an interesting
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
as opposed to what they normally ask you.
What do you
Um,
do for work? Mm.
or how big is your, what, or whatever.
Oh, right. Yeah, right.
Yeah, because it's gay men,
right,
right?
right.
Remember? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So so I was like, oh, an intelligent question. So I answered back that I believed, that, God was an energy and it was in everything. And I don't know, blah, 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 whatever. And he wrote back this 2-page email
Ooh.
about how he's high priest of a witch's covenant, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, ooh,
What?
that sounds so interesting.
Yes.
So, of course, I was like fascinated. And, we met up, and that was 1998 is how many years ago? It's 2021.
Oh my God, a couple.
That's a long
Jeez.
ass time. I have to do math on on a podcast while people are listening.
Nah.
A long ass time ago.
Yeah.
So over 20 years ago, right?
Yes.
And it was like my introduction to a more formalized magical practice with a witch tradition.
Mm.
And I've been in that tradition since that same year. We met in the summer, and that autumn I was going to moon rituals, and now I'm high
Wow.
priest in the tradition.
Mm.
So that was really like the brief sort of overview of Jim as magical human, right?
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know.
So, what about like his sort of witch coven community, like his particular expertise that really piqued your interest and got you into it? Because it seems like you kind of really rang true with it and got in pretty quick, huh?
At first, I was like, this is probably devil worship because I didn't know anything.
Sure,
I
yeah.
was afraid of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I really wasn't sure what they were all about. They were all interesting and cool people. Some of them more interesting than cool, but basically all fascinating humans who were
Sure.
in this group. Um, I had heard about this idea of Wicca or whatever in
Hmm.
high school. I was lucky enough in my Catholic high school even to have sort of heard the term or been generally familiar with, like, there's some people who practice something called Wicca, which
Yeah.
is probably devil worship. I don't know, but is I think I knew enough at that time that it was sort of a nature religion. And even though that was in the 80s, which is kind of amazing that I knew
Hmm.
that at the time. So when 10 years later, in late 90s, I am introduced to someone who's a witch. It wasn't like I was fascinated. I was like, that sounds interesting.
Hmm.
Um, and I just wanted to learn more. Well, it was also interesting because duh, I'm dating this super awesome guy who I'm like majorly into.
Yeah.
And
I love whatever you love.
I love whatever
Yeah,
you like.
that's
But
right.
here's the interesting thing, and it's interesting because Richard and I had this conversation. My husband, Richard, and I had this conversation just last night,
Hmm.
where he said how hard it would be to have a partner, and no shade on anyone whose partner doesn't share this, but the ease in which and the connection in which we share spirituality, especially since we are both spiritual leaders in our group,
Sure.
and that he himself was high priest of that coven when I met him,
Hmm.
that it's so important to have for him. Like, if you're married to a pastor and you don't share that religious belief, that's might be difficult because I mean, you
Yeah.
could have conversations about it, but like it's so much a part of our lives,
Yeah. It's like
right?
your whole thinking system is affected by it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So it so at the time I think it was important for him. He was really testing at that time to try to figure out, was what he told me later, is he was making, like, he didn't want to date somebody who wasn't willing to entertain being a witch along with him.
Sure.
And he had that experience before, and it was like, not so great. So was I, even though I wasn't already a witch, was I open to it, and what would it look like? So when he brought me to a moon, um, and I found it meaningful. I found it really amazing, and I have continued to find it amazing.
Mm.
This is a spiritual practice where our bodies are not different from our spirit, where our embodiment of the experience of the world is spiritual.
Yeah.
And we have been socialized so hard to kill our spirit. We have to. You're not going to
Yeah.
work in an industrial factory if you have a spirit. We have to break the horse and we
Yeah.
have to break the humans. And so what is school? School you know, is horse breaking for humans.
12
Right?
years of brainwashing.
It's brainwashing.
Yeah.
12 plus college, right?
Yeah. Good point.
So that is all sort of to break out. And so we don't acknowledge the existence of spirit except in very particular circumstances.
Hmm.
We don't acknowledge that even in Christianity, we don't acknowledge, you're not allowed to bring that to work or acknowledge that it's real. Now, I'm all about religious freedom,
Hmm.
which is really excellent, but it's also like there's intuition. Spirituality is often a human trait
Yeah.
in
It's
whatever
more.
ways, right?
Hmm.
So that's, I forget where I was going with that tangent, but
Well, that's all right.
rope me
I
back in.
I agree. It is a spiritual experience that we're living through our flesh suits. I mean, even knitting has similar correlations with that as well. It's a great thing to have someone to knit with. I mean, I also have my roommate who is a knitter, and it's like going from being by myself, it's something that you do, you don't really think about it, to then having someone to do it with. It's like it brings more energy to to the topic, whatever it is, you know. And it's just more fun to do together as people. I think we're supposed to be together. So I'm glad
You're
that
going to
you
start
found
a
him.
knit coven. You're going to start a
Ah,
knitting coven.
that's right. Yeah, the virtual knitting coven, knitting ourselves together. Join me.
Join the knitting coven.
That's
Oh
right.
my God,
Cast on.
you're gonna get emails after this episode asking people to join the knitting coven.
Yeah. How do I join the knitting coven? That's right. Not
On
yet.
Zoom every week. Oh,
That's right.
kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Maybe one day. Yeah. So, well, that's great. So palmistry came second.
So in this same
and then
time,
spirituality.
right. So in this same time, probably concurrent, but way, way back way up to when I'm 11 years old. So this is me still very Catholic. I'm only 11, right?
Yeah.
Very much in line with my parents. I discover now my dad's side of the family was very Leave It to Beaver type of, I mean, is that a dated thing? Very classic American nuclear family, 1950s family. Well, very financially well off, with a nice big house in a beautiful suburb in Cleveland, Ohio, right? So there's this gorgeous, like 4-acre, a house on 4 acres in a suburb. I mean, ride bikes. It's picturesque. You ride bikes down the tree lined streets, and there's, I grew up in the Sonoran Desert, and there, if you want
different.
grass, it has to be watered every day, right? And twice a day. But in Ohio, all you have to do is mow whatever's there, and you have grass, right?
That's
so it's
right.
really funny. Anyway, so it's this beautiful setting, and so we go back and visit. And I wasn't really encouraged to go into the attic, which was accessible through a door in the bedroom where we were staying. But I did, and in there were all kinds of cool treasures and things hidden in boxes and whatever. And somewhere I found a little pamphlet that said, "Your future's in your palms," or "Your future's in your hands," or something. I so wish I still had that little pamphlet. Anyway, so I read it, and then I was like, "Ooh, this is cool." And I read my brother's palm. And my brother then immediately, like next time we saw Mom, said, "Mom, Jim read my palms." And my mom snap pointed. She has this killer ability to snap very, very loudly and point.
What? Oh.
Don't do that. It's devil worship. Remember
totally
the
have
satanic
a syndrome.
panic?
That's right.
I was 11, so that would have been 71, 81, 1982, right?
Oh my goodness.
So way back.
Year.
It was a good year. So then I was mortified.
And
I never did palmistry again, right?
Oh no.
Until I was 16 and started to rebel.
There you go.
And I was super like, oh, I could do this thing. So there's this bohemian coffee shop that in my hometown near the university area that was in a little, like, there's all these little tiny like houses around a courtyard. And in Spanish, they're called casitas, right? And in the back, there's the larger house, which is usually the landlord. And so the larger house was converted into a cafe, this bohemian cafe. And then the little casitas were like different businesses around this fountain and this courtyard, right? And so there was like an insurance agency, and there was like clothing stores and, whatever, like art gallery. So they were all little tiny, casitas, but serving as like retail shops now.
Cute.
And each of them had a little porch because they used to be houses. And so these little porticos in the evenings when the businesses would close, but the cafe was still open, people would busk or they would play music or whatever on this inside these little porticos, right? So I just made a sign. I'm kind of artistic. And so I made a palmistry sign and sat down in the little portico of one of the casitas every so often, not very often, but once in a while. And I would just do palmistry for tips.
I love that. How many people did you get?
I don't know, every so often. And every time someone would come up to me and I'd read their palm, they were like, "Wow, that's amazing." And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's nothing." right? I mean, I'm 16. Can you imagine getting your palm read by a 16-year-old who just has their license and is like out on the
Probably not.
Yeah, it's this kid, right?
But,
But
maybe if he had that look,
yeah.
a certain
And
something in his eye.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was kind of cute, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So like it was an amazing experience because and then I would read palm like people would say, "Oh yeah, Jim's a palm reader." And then everyone would show me their palms and I would read,
Nah.
don't don't if people do I always tell people don't tell people I'm a palm reader at this party because I will
I'm
now
not
I'm
here
like,
to work.
you're welcome to book an appointment, right?
That's right. Yeah. I'm not
But
here as the guest, or I'm here as the guest, not the
yeah.
entertainment.
But it's kind of a dick move when you're like, just getting started as a kid, right?
Hmm.
So I would just do it, or I'd do it at the bar and get free drinks or whatever. So it was my party trick. And I kept hearing this feedback from people, which is like, that was amazing. Or that
Mm.
wow. Like they were surprised that it would be so meaningful.
Yeah.
And eventually I had this realization. And so one of my biggest breakthroughs was when I had this sort of vision and the divine basically challenged me and was like, how many times do I have to tell you you're amazing before you'll believe me?
Hmm.
And I'm like, you haven't told me I'm amazing. There was no like writing in the walls and fire, and the burning bush wasn't talking to me, and I haven't heard the clouds part and a voice come down from heaven. So,
Yeah,
you
your hand with the
know,
pentacle wasn't there. Come
no,
on.
I didn't hear, you know, you say anything.
Hmm.
And the divine spirit said to me, every time you hear another person say that was amazing, that's me speaking.
Hmm.
Right?
Yes.
What if
Wow.
what if all of us started listening to people's feedback,
Hmm.
positive feedback, as though it's from the divine?
I'll
What
tell
would
you
that
what.
do?
Uh, just make people appreciate things more, perhaps, without feeling bad about it. There's a weird shame
Right?
in that. I don't understand
Maybe
it.
maybe you would be invited to really like be fully self-expressed or step into your greatness.
Hmm.
So I was being
Yeah.
invited to step into that greatness. And then I got the really clear understanding of what humility is.
Hmm.
Humility is not embarrassment. Humility is not um, downplaying your gifts. Humility is putting your lantern on the table
Yeah.
and letting the light shine. And it's not putting your lantern under a basket, right?
Right.
It's being fully aware of your gifts and sharing them with others, not hiding them
Yeah. Not
underneath
keeping them
something.
for yourself.
Exactly. Or being so
Hmm.
ashamed or so like whatever that it
Yeah.
doesn't, impact people. So that was a huge realization is humility is humbly accepting and sharing my gifts with
Mm.
confidence and with love.
Pardon the interruption, but here's a special message from, well, us. Hey, Jim, let's talk about a palm reading for a sec.
Oh yeah, my favorite topic.
So, I don't think a lot of people necessarily think of getting a palm reading, but my palm reading with you was awesome, and it actually helped with a lot of preconceived notions that I had of the craft before now.
Oh, you had preconceived notions about palmistry? What were they?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm pretty literal. So I thought having a short lifeline might mean you have a short life, or that
Right.
a star on your palm is bad.
Oh, that's interesting. Both of those are common. A short lifeline does not mean a short life. It actually means a life of connection with the divine and learning and creating type of life. And a star in your palm is a sign of spiritual gift. Those are two things that are dispelled right away. I know there's a lot of things on the palm that people
Yeah,
think are good or bad, right? There's nothing inherently negative in your palm. You can use all the tools, all the markings. They are associated with your strengths, your personality, and things you can use in your life.
absolutely. I really love that modern take on palmistry, and it actually really resonated in my reading. I think everyone would enjoy a reading from you. And, dear listener, if you too would like a fantastic experience that offers insight, direction, and clarity, I highly suggest booking a session with my dear friend James Devine, and you can find more information at thedivinedhand.com. Hey there, would you like to try one of my knitting patterns for free? You can. All you have to do is sign up for the Light from Lantern newsletter by visiting lightfromlantern.com. You'll also receive exclusive updates, promotions, and discount codes that are available only for subscribers. Sign up today and never miss a stitch. Thanks for listening. Let's jump back into our episode. Yeah, that's great. I mean, the fact that you really heard it and, listened, that's where the change happens.
Yeah. I hope that sharing this story helps other people be inspired to listen to.
I think so. I mean,
listen differently.
I was one of those same people, for a long time. I wasn't I guess afraid to share, the fact that I did tarot with people just because I got so many initial responses when I first started that were so negative and that made people afraid that I was like, oh, well, this isn't worth it to freak people out so much. So I just packed it up and made it my own personal thing until I realized that's their problem. So, and that by, us embracing things like that, it becomes normal, just like talking about sex, just like talking about women's periods. I mean, and death, yes, literally everything. So, yeah, you gotta take the shame out of it from yourself first and then be the example to others, I suppose.
I love that you said that. Take the shame out of it and be the example for others. And I think I need you and everyone listening to be the example of fully embracing your gifts and letting your freak flag fly.
Absolutely. Yes. You are the best at being you. So just do that.
And I just think that there's nothing more inspiring than someone who's just so authentically them.
Well, that's what I thought when I first met you, Jim. We were just talking about that earlier. I saw you on your live stream and I was like, that guy looks like he's exactly that guy. If I were to meet him, this is not an act. This is his actual energy level. He looks like yellow. So I want to hang with him. And
wait, what does that mean? He looks like yellow.
You just look happy and fun and joyful. You just look like all the yellow properties of a thing. I don't know. To me, you look like yellow. That's all I can say. Whatever that means.
I look like how you experience the color yellow. Happy,
yeah, exactly.
Cheerful, joyful.
Yeah. Indeed.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
You're yellow. I'm used to that term, which is cowardly.
I know, right? It's kind of funny that it would be noted as cowardly when it's
when it's
really
such a
the
cheerful.
Opposite.
Is that your favorite color, yellow?
It is one of mine, yeah, actually.
Oh, my mom's favorite color is yellow.
Yeah. I had a yellow car. Oh, I loved it so much.
Yeah, this is her favorite. She doesn't live in a place where these grow, but daffodils are her favorite flower because they're so beautifully yellow, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. We just had our front door painted yellow. And it's, again, every time you see it, it's you just can't help but smile. So that's what I think of you, Jim. I can't help but smile.
Bright and shiny, sunshiny Jimmy. Sunny Jim. That's right. Well, that's Sunny one Jim. Of my nicknames is Sunny Jim.
Oh, well, it's very fitting. I like it. Yeah. So fast forward, you've embraced your gifts and now you're here. What kind of offerings can people find from you? Other than, you do palmistry readings, obviously. Tell us a little bit more about that and other things that you offer as well. I know you do classes too.
Yeah, so people can, on my website, thedivinehand.com, you can book a private palm reading and discover amazing things about yourself that
apparently won't even believe.
You will believe because it's often, but yes, it's unbelievable. I often am shocked that I can look at your palm and say things about your hand that you have never told anyone. That there's feedback from people. One of the people that gave me a review said he knows things about me that even my best friend doesn't know. And I was surprised by that. That was an amazing reading where I knew about what this person was up to because of their hand and could help her see that from an external perspective. It helped her so much, right? And it was an amazing. It was cool to be able to do that. And whenever that happens, I mean, it happens at almost every reading. I think at every reading.
Yeah.
It's amazing. How the heck does this work that I can actually do that, right?
Yeah.
So a number of years ago, I thought, is this just me? Like, I've developed a way of reading palms that's unique,
Mm.
right? I'm using my degree in sociology. I'm using my understanding of psychology and
Mm.
of social psychology and the way social systems work. I'm using my understanding and my experience in magic and metaphysics, and I'm blending those together um, to understand how our body language and how our hands are expressing our unconscious and our deep sort of metaphysical selves.
Mm.
And I thought, okay, is it just me? Is it just Jim that has these unique experiences, and that's why I can read this way? Or
Mm.
is this a methodology that's A, is this a method? And B, is this method teachable?
Yeah.
So, with those two questions, I created and sort of documented the methodology over a period of years and wrote out, like, how does it work? And it started with a colleague who was a tarot reader, a professional tarot reader. We would often do events together.
Mm.
And a client had asked if she could do palmistry. And she was like, instead of referring that client to me,
Mm.
I'm kidding. No, it was awesome. So she said, Jim, would you teach me how to read palms?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
it's cute because I think other people might have had opinion around, like, no, I'm not going to teach you how I do it. But I was into it. I was like, yeah, could I teach you to read palms? So I gave her the basics, and she went to that party and was able to read palms
Mm.
successfully. And she came back to me and she was like, that was amazing. And it was cool. And I was like,
Ooh,
okay.
exciting.
So those were a series of notes just on paper.
Mm.
And I took those and then assembled them into more and more of the sort of the rubric and the methodology.
Mm.
From there, I thought, okay, I really want to know if this is teachable. Like, I just taught someone who's already a professional reader and
Sure.
wanted to learn, like, and it just so happened, as I'm thinking that, I get an email out of the blue from a woman from Arizona, like me,
Mm.
who has dabbled in palmistry for her whole life, like me, and found me on the internet and was really timid. And she said, I don't know if you'd ever want to like meet or talk about stuff, but I'd love to do that if you're interested. And I
Mm.
said yes. And so we met for sushi, and Brittany was my first apprentice. And so I taught her my method, and it stuck. And it's amazing to see her bring her own
Oh,
self to the
wonderful.
divine hand method.
Yeah.
I had a second apprentice who didn't have any palmistry experience, to see if someone who wasn't familiar with palmistry could do it.
Sure.
She's an amazing palm reader. That's
Wow.
Juliet, and they're both on my website, Juliet and Brittany.
Mm.
So now from that, I teach palmistry, and
Wow.
it's been
Wonderful.
fantastic to do. And so I'm just teaching these short, small classes on, intro to palmistry. You can find those on my website, or other magical topics as
Mm.
well. But what's coming, should I tell you?
I mean, if you're willing to spill that tea.
What's coming is a full on certification course, like what I did
Ooh.
for Brittany and for Juliet. And
Great.
so this is the apprenticeship program, but sort of set up as like a, I think it's 14 or 15 weeks.
Oh,
I can't
wow.
remember how long it is, but it's a long, sort
It's an
of deep
intensive.
immersion
Yeah.
into and you're actually going to read palms. So it's going to be done on Zoom, and they don't need it. There's no prerequisites, but you can go from zero to palm reader over those
Wow.
period of weeks. So I'm super excited about that. Look for that in May time period,
Very
similar to
exciting.
whatever you're launching in
Yeah.
May.
That's right. Shh.
Oh,
You'll
sorry.
know. You'll know soon.
So yeah, that's so I teach. And so what people can get from me, palm readings, they
Mm-hmm.
can get teaching, they can be entertained on, my Instagram. Every Tuesday I interview a mystical person, which is super fun, on Instagram
Mm-hmm.
Live. So you can do that. And then you can find me here on Knit a Spell.
That's right. Gosh. Oh my gosh. You are just like a wealth of knowledge, which is exactly the reason I needed you here. I want to always learn all of the things, as we
I feel the
learned
same
earlier.
about you. I feel the
Oh.
same about you.
Oh. So let me ask you this. Why is it, do you think, the hands include so much information about us? Like, why is it the hands specifically? Would it be the same with like the feet or another body part? Like, why the hands?
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be the same with any other body part, in my opinion.
Okay.
Here's why. Everything you do,
Mm.
you're doing with your hands. So let's
Mm.
talk about the biology. Let's just talk about um, the physiology, the anatomy of the hand.
Mm.
Oh, I guess that's the third thing that I bring to palmistry is my pre-med studies because I was going to be in med school. So I'm bringing the anatomy and the body language with
Oh,
the metaphysics and the sociology together. So I love
that's
that sort of
great.
trifecta, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the area of the body that has the most anatomical articulations, and that means where two bones join together, um, is the faciocranial structure. So your head,
Mm.
right? Because there's all these like fissures between the plates of the skull and all these little like fissures between the face, all the stuff. But none of those are active. None of those move. They're all like very
Mm.
stationary articulations, right? And
Right.
so they're only articulations from a anatomical perspective. They're not actually moving.
Mm.
You have a lot of articulations in your spinal column, which is all the bones that are connected and all the tiny muscles,
Mm.
and those move, but they don't move with the same level of articulation as the
Mm.
hand. You
Yeah.
have a very similar number of articulations and little bones and things in your feet, but again, the feet don't
Mm.
move as precisely and as diversely as the hands.
Mm.
So although you have these places in the body that have all these like articulations, it's the
Mm.
hands that are most, quote, articulate in their dexterity, in their ability to
Mm.
move and to do different
Ooh,
things.
expressive. Yeah.
Exactly. And we
Oh,
express ourselves with our hands, right? I'm not
yeah.
throwing my feet up being like, yay, right? That'd be something else I'd be doing.
Ha.
I'm not like gesturing like go that way with my big toe, right? I would do that if I didn't have arms or
Sure.
hands, potentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if you have hands, yeah, you're gonna use them. You use them to ride your motorcycle, play your guitar, type on your computer, hover over your mouth, knit
Take care of
a
yourself.
shawl,
Yeah,
wash
exactly.
your body, touch your lover,
Hmm.
gesture and articulate. Like you can say two words with just one finger gesture, right?
Yeah, you
You
sure
can
can.
just, good job. You can just put up that thumb. What were you thinking?
What?
Ah, I
The pointer
caught you.
finger, right? No?
That way.
Point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's,
that way.
yeah. I'm gonna walk over
Yeah,
here.
you weren't thinking of the middle finger and the
Oh, what?
FU. No.
No. Oh,
No.
no. So I was thinking, thank you. Point at you. Obviously, yes.
So we have these gestures that actually mean words, right? And they're really powerful.
Yeah, I mean,
So
whole languages in just your hands.
yeah, we have sign language that just uses our
Mm-hmm.
hands, right? So
Gosh, yeah.
the hands are incredibly powerful. There's lots of symbolism with the hands. There's a ton of magical symbolism with hands. So
Hmm.
the hands have been sacred and amazing like symbols and archetypes forever. And yet we don't watch the hands for clues except in a general sense.
Hmm.
We are programmed to watch your face. My unconscious
Hmm.
programming, my mirror neurons in my brain are coded to watch your face for facial expressions and micro expressions to know whether you like what I'm saying or not,
Hmm.
which is a problem when we're wearing masks or when we're on Zoom and there's a delay, right? It's part of this issue.
Yes. Hmm.
We are not, our mirror neurons are also coded for general body language, but not for the nuances of hand gesture.
Wow.
So your hands will give away all of your unconscious like self.
Oh, that's why it's like a big tell when you're
It
like a
is.
poker player, or
Yes.
like why they're so meaningful for like dancers and figure
Yep.
skaters. Any the one who does choreography and
And hula dancing
oh,
when you
it's
have
blowing
like
my
different, yeah.
mind. Yes,
So
hula
all of these
dancing. Oh.
things. And so then the hands tell the story because they also will rat you out if you go from being in a desk job to like being a bricklayer, your hands are going to change. Every day you're like, moving those bricks and handling those bricks, and your hands are going to become more muscular. The skin is going to become rougher and tougher. You're going to, totally, if you're a gardener, if you start playing guitar, you're going to get those guitar playing calluses that I can always identify. So these are things that are just like things that happen, but it happens on a micro level. If you're having stress and your stress level has changed, your hands are going to be gripping that steering wheel in your commute to work or doing something, and it's going to show up. So these are all the reasons why, and more, the hands end up being a really amazing way to read people. So then we have the metaphysical side, which is each of the fingers is associated with a planetary archetype. And it's funny how the planetary archetype matches how we use the finger in our society. So the index finger is Jupiter. Jupiter is seen as the leader, as authority, but also, I mean, I think of Zeus, the ancient Greek, right? But also in more modern times in astrology, would think of it as expansion and luck and fortune. And that's how we expand things. We use that index finger to pry things open. We point the way and direct people with that index finger. And so I don't want to get into all the nuts and bolts of it now, but basically every finger matches how we use it in society. And it just is mind-blowing. In
a society that doesn't even believe it. Most of them.
Exactly.
But it's still true, even if you don't believe it.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's incredible. I mean, I'm thinking like, again, another tie to knitting. Making a project, let's say you're making a pair of socks. You make one pair, or you make one sock prior to Christmas. You make the other after Christmas. The one you made before Christmas is like half the size because it's so knit, so tight, because you're stressed from all the things that you're doing prior to all the holiday, whatever. And then afterwards, it's done. You do your second sock. It's twice as big because you were loose and hanging out. So even your stress level is reflected in what you're doing with your hands. That's incredible. Gosh.
I never thought of that. This is why the collab between knitting and palmistry is such an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Right?
That's it. I mean, you do more than palmistry, but you...
you do more than knitting.
Well, there you go. But yeah, I mean, this is why this whole podcast came to be, because this is nuggets of knowledge you need to know. So. Awesome. Well, gosh.
It's so cool. Well, I do think about that, like, and that's part of what we talked about last time is like, if you're going to knit, if you're going to make something, what's the energy and intent that's going in? And what's the hand? Like, could you do a hand gesture or a sigil or a modern mudra, if you will, to sort of set the tone for what you're about to do? And yeah, one of the things that you and I were talking about, which we still haven't done, is analyze hand positions while knitting.
Oh, yeah.
What unconscious mudra are you expressing as you pick or as you throw based on how you knit, right? Or if you're more of a lefty or a righty, I'm sure there's ways, right? But anyway, that we'll have to save that for a future episode.
Absolutely.
Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, maybe even like a little lecture or something. We could do a little booklet. So yeah. Stay tuned, guys. If you're interested, send me a quick email just to let me know. Awesome, Jim. Well, gosh, yeah, I really appreciate you spilling your guts today.
It's been so much fun to share who I am and have you interview me. Usually the tables are on the other way around.
It's nice to flip the script a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, anything else we need to know about you before we go?
Nope. Find me on the internet. Well, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, you can find me at Light From Lantern on all of the social medias, including lightfromlantern.com. And you can find more information about Knit a Spell and our upcoming episodes at knitaspell.com. Go figure.
Go figure.
Awesome, Jim. Well, I appreciate your time again, and we'll see everybody again next week.
See you next week.
All right. Bye. That brings us to the end of our episode. Now it's up to you to share this podcast with your friends. You could be the person who knew about us before we were cool. Just point them to knitaspell.com to learn more.